I'm so glad that I was at my grandmother's and it was like 3 a.m. so no one can see me, because, you know, I wasn't crying like this. I wasn't crying like that. I was crying like this. Hello everyone, it's Lily, and today's video will be kind of looking back at 2021. I'll be talking about the games I played this year, as well as sort of, you know, top three, the three that I absolutely adored. So I'll be fangirling over three of my favorites for this year. But anyway, I have got my little book of the list of games that I have played. So this year I didn't play as many as before. I completed 7 games, and then, you know, I kind of played a couple of routes of 4 other games, so I will be talking about these as well, but I'll primarily focus on the 7 that I completed and or played enough of that I feel like I kind of should mention it, if you know what I mean. But anyway, let me start. So first up is Code Realized Guardian of Rebirth. Now this game is about, and you've probably heard me talk about this game in several other videos, so feel free to skip to the next one if you're a bit fed up of it. It's about a girl, Cardia, who is poisonous. Now she does not know why, hence why she goes on a little journey of discovering why she is the way she is. Depending on what route you pick, you also kind of explore that character's issues and their story, so it's very touching at times. You kind of feel very emotional in some of these routes. Some of them are quite emotional actually, and it's steampunk and based in London. Well, some of it was in Wales, but it's based in England, so I feel kind of a bit of a familiarity with some of the buildings. I have made a little review on it, so feel free to check that out if you're curious. But it's quite fluffy. I'd say the romance is there in a way that the two, you can see their bond gradually grow, and it's very sweet. The romance is sweet. It's not so much, obviously she's poisonous, so you don't really see any kiss scenes or anything like that. So if you're more into the mature stuff, it may not be for you, but if you really like sweet romance where it's there, just not physically there, this will be great for you, I think, because the romance is there. It's just very, you know, sweet. I think that's the best. And there are 2 FDs for it, fan discs. One is called Future Blessings, the other is called Wintertide Miracles. And so, you know, if you play this game and you're like, oh no, it's finished, I want more, you do have 2 that you can play after that, which is great. And yeah, I don't know, it wasn't like my favorite, don't get me wrong, and everyone's gonna hate me for saying that because it seems so popular, but I can see why it's popular, and that I can see why there's such a large fan base, because it is quite well written, and yeah, I think it's good. I'm looking forward to playing the fan discs, although as I said, it wasn't entirely my cup of tea. Now, next up is Charade Maniacs. Now this is an unlocalized game, so it's not available in English, unfortunately, but it's kind of, the best way to describe it is probably, it's like Among Us, but otome style. So the premise is it's set in the future. There's this girl who gets isekai'd, or, you know, flown into this other universe, whereby there are sort of, I think, 9 other allies, and the aim is that they have to do, like, they're forced to do dramas and record, like, sort of a series almost for aliens to watch and enjoy. And if they don't obey sort of the context of the story, and they don't say the lines and they don't do it right, they end up getting punished in one way or another. And some of these punishments are quite, like, severe. You go, ooh. And it has this kind of claustrophobic feeling of being trapped in this world where they can't escape and they don't know what's going on. And not only that, they have been told that there is one betrayer, and that person is the person who brought them to this weird universe. And so, you know, the reason why I say it's kind of like Among Us is because there's this one person that they're really, like, a bit worried about, like, who is it? You just don't know. And every time you play a route, you're kind of sitting there going, oh my god, who is it? Who is it? I don't know. And all of the routes, I think the characters seem so suspicious, you know? So I don't know, but I won't say anything more. Beware of spoilers. because you really don't want to know who the culprit is, because part of the fun is kind of that paranoia of who is it? Is it this person? Is it that person? You know, that sort of thing. So one, I would not look up any guides on which route to play first, and to just avoid any reviews, because anything could be a spoiler. So yeah, just those things are noted. But yeah, it's set in the future. It's a bit sci-fi and it is fun. Now the issue I had with it was that there were 9 love interests, which gave me a bit of burnout. In fact, I think this is the culprit as to why I only managed to play like 7 this year, because after playing Charade Maniacs, I was so exhausted because I had gone through 9 characters all at once, and don't get me wrong, another, I guess, issue some people had is that each of the routes are kind of, compared to a lot of otome games, relatively short, and I didn't feel like there were lots of endings or anything, because you got all the CGs within that route, you know, there were no like bad ending CGs or anything like that. You got all the CGs in that one route, and yeah, it was shortish, and some people had an issue with this. But when you have 9 love interests, it is kind of hard to make all of those routes long enough. So part of me was glad, because towards the end I just honestly wanted the game to end. But it was good. I would probably give it like a 3.5 out of 5, because the story, it was fun, you know, that sense of paranoia and the punishments that were extremely severe, that you go, oh, I wouldn't want to be in their situation, and that sort of thing. So it was interesting, but the romance was relatively lacking. You would probably have to come up with like fanfic for it to have any sort of butterfly feeling in you, to be honest. And I don't know, it didn't leave like a huge impression. I feel like it's one of those games that you want to play to say you've played it, because of the interesting concept, and you can talk to other people. But I wouldn't be like shoving it in your faces going, play this, you know. Now, third on the list is Jeanne. Now, I have actually only played 4 routes, so Kisa's route as well as 3 out of the 6 love interests. However, each route is so long I felt like this game is definitely worth mentioning. I think I've played enough hours of it to, you know, add it to my little list. So I guess you could argue that I've played 6.5 games this year, but let me just say 7, because so the reason why it's so long is that there's a bit of gameplay in it, and the only bits that you really experience that character is right towards the end, as well as like the little events you have, because how it works is during the day you pick like your classes. So the whole premise is about this main character, Kisa, who really loves acting, and her older brother goes to this prestigious school for boys only that focus on theatre, so all you do is like theatre related things at school. And she of course really wants to go to such a school, but this one's only available for boys, and I don't think there's any available for girls anywhere nearby. So of course she can't enter, so she's feeling very sad about this. But one day the principal comes along and says, hey, I'm kind of wanting to change the rules a little bit, and I want you know, I want to see if you would fit in with everyone and be able to do well in this school. And of course she has to get through the exams and pass and get in the school as you would normally. However, if she does, as long as people don't find out she's a boy, I mean as long as people don't find out that she's a girl, and she manages to become the main role for the final performance, she will get to stay on at this school. And so with that criteria, she joins, and it's kind of her life at this high school. And so there's this kind of parameter raising kind of thing where during the days you have to pick like all the different classes. So things like, you know, dance, things like acting, singing, that sort of thing. And depending on what character you want to go for, you kind of want to aim to get that level of that particular class to level 30, because you've got skill points and the maximum is level 30. And then every class you do that, but on the weekend you get to hang out with one of the characters. So you kind of transfer into this like map screen where you've got like the faces of the characters. It's you know, classic sim date type of system, and then when you pick that character, if your affection and the level of that skill is high enough, you have like an event where you see the story of that character, and it's really quite interesting. But obviously it means that there's a lot of skipping to do. And don't get me wrong, I adore this game. It's so much fun. I really liked it. It left so much of an impression in my mind, but it means that each playthrough can take a while. So I've only managed to do 4 routes, 3 to go, and I think there is one route, or you know, like route-ish story, side story things of each of the sub-characters. So I've still got a long way to go, but the production is amazing. The art is beautiful. The music is beautiful. The character backstories are great. I really do recommend it. I'd say I'd give it like maybe a 4.5 out of 5, because it was just, yeah, it was great. And you know, I love that sort of, although there isn't too much romance, oddly enough, I could let it slide. I was okay with it. It was just good. Anyway, next on the list is LoverPretend. I have made a review on this one as well, but basically it's about this girl who's aspiring to be a playwright. She does not know who her father is, and her mother died quite early, so she was brought up by her grandmother, and she goes to uni, you know, to learn about writing plays and all this, and then one day the offer comes through for her to be an assistant of her sort of supervisor, or this lecturer that she admires, to help him with this particular movie that they're going to make. And she discovers that all the people who are going to be, you know, part of this movie have something to do with her mum, so it could be her father. So although she decides to join with the idea of, you know, looking for experience, sort of leveling up her skills, shall we say, as a playwright, she also has the ulterior motive of looking for her father as well, and it's kind of like a story of her looking for father. It's very much a rom-com. Each route has like its ups and downs, and it's sweet. There are a couple of bad endings that are a bit, you know, oh, okay, that went suddenly downhill, but you can kind of brush it off because it's so like slapdash. But the good endings are, you know, great. There's like a normal good ending and a really good ending type of thing. And yeah, all in all, I think it was a fun little game. I think it's one of those games where you play it if you want something nice and short. You don't want it to take too much of your time, and it's a nice casual read rather than there being like hugely emotional moments. But yeah, it was fun, and I'd probably give it like, again, a 3.5 out of 5 maybe. I don't know what I ranked it in my official review, but who knows? I think it was okay though. I enjoyed it. Next up is Birushana Senki. Now this one is planned for localization next year in summer, I believe, and it's called Birushana Fleeting Blossom of the Genpei or something in English. Just, I remember it as Birushana Senki because that's just, I don't know what it's called in the Japanese version is called. But it's a historical fiction based in a sort of post-war, so after the Heian War, where the Minamoto clan and the Taira clan clashed and the Minamoto clan lost. And she's the daughter of the head of the Minamoto clan, who's the one that got defeated, and she was taken to the monks to be brought up in hiding. However, she's not known to be the daughter. Everyone thinks that she's actually a son, so it's about her pretending to be a man and having to hide this secret while being this strong guy that everyone's supposed to follow as leader, and it's about her story. And I don't know, the bad endings of this game were just so beautiful. They left such an impact. In fact, I liked most of the bad endings more than the good endings. I call them bad endings. They're called tragic love endings because the bad endings are the ones where basically she dies, or like the love interest dies or whatever, which happens very quickly. But yes, there's a tragic love ending and a happy love ending. The tragic love endings, honestly, were just so beautiful. I think Noritsune's tragic love ending has now replaced Yang's bad ending as my absolute favourite bad ending. So unfortunately for Yang from Pio Fiore, his bad ending has now become second place in my bad ending ranking, and Noritsune's tragic love ending has become my number one. It was, honestly, it was so beautiful. The way they build it up throughout the whole route up to that ending was, I just can't express how much it sort of, yeah, it was just beautiful. You'll know what I mean when you play it, but it really was one of my favorites. And I lost a lot of hours of sleep playing this game because I just wanted to know what happens next. And also, the one character that I was most interested in was the character that I wanted to play last. So I kind of wanted to get through all those characters to get to that character, and I was not disappointed. Tomomori is his name. He's the blonde one. He's the character that I was most looking forward to right from the start, and yeah, I was not disappointed. He was fun, and I'm so glad it's coming for localization next year because honestly, I'm not huge on historical fiction normally because either it's too sad, there's not that much romance, too much fighting, and you know, Birushana also fit all these three things, but I must admit, it was a lot of fun. And I have made a review on this game, so feel free to check it out if you're curious, because you know, I think you should, and I would definitely give it, I think 4 out of 5 maybe. There were repetitive moments, so it's kind of hard to say, but like looking back at it, that's kind of the score I would give it. Now, next up, my favorite. And you won't even need to know which ones I pick as my top 3 because of the passion I'll be showing talking about this game. Next up is Shuuen no Virche. Oh my god, I love this game so much. It was like the best thing. It was so up my street. It's basically a game that's sort of now become famous for it being so full of despair. Oh god. It's about this main character, Ceresu, who has this like weird curse about her which causes people around her to die early, as everyone considers her like a death god and avoids her like the plague, which I don't blame them for, but it does make her a very pessimistic and depressed girl. And it's kind of like throughout each of the routes you gradually sort of discover a little bit about her and why she is the way she is, and at the very final route you learn everything, and it's the twists and turns. But it's kind of like a fairy tale told, which is incredibly dark, but it has sci-fi elements to it as well. And don't get me wrong, the science behind it is absolutely bonkers, but if you use your imagination, you can kind of like put it into place and make it work. And I thought it was great how they mixed the sci-fi and the fantasy and made it sort of like a fairy tale. They told it in such a, it was just written so well, and the art is so up my street, you know, the whole black and red thing, beautiful, and it's so depressing but in a good way. Of course there were certain character tropes that are my absolute favorite, so that did not disappoint me. Surprisingly, the poster boy I really enjoyed his route, you know, like I thought he was adorable, and even in the other routes I thought he was one of the most cute characters I've ever come across. And even the character that I really am not into, the route was so crazy and messed up that I really enjoyed his route as well. So I had no problems with any of the routes. The final route, however, was incredibly long, so I didn't think that would ever end, if I'm to be completely honest. But yeah, so no, and it's in a world where people die at the age of, I think, 23? Was it? I can't remember. But when people, before they reach that age, they tend to die, and it's you find out why at the end of the last route, I think. And but the crazy thing about this game is you can't just play the good endings. You have all these bad endings, and you have to go through all the bad endings before you get to play the good endings, and they're called the savior endings, where, you know, they're supposed to be like the characters feeling a bit more happy or whatever, but some of them it's questionable. I think some of them would be considered a bad ending if it were in another game. So I would recommend it to those who are up for something that's a little bit different and quite depressing and love sort of emotional roller coasters, but I wouldn't recommend it to those who prefer rom-coms and stuff, because it's quite tragic. However, there's one thing to say: it's so beyond imagination, and it's so much in a fantasy world that it didn't affect me emotionally, because I think for a game to make me cry, it needs to be very realistic, like based in the real world. So it did not make me cry, I don't think. but it is very tragic. So if you get emotional easily, you'll probably cry. But yes, this game has become my all-time favorite, and I would say I'd give it a 5 out of 5. It was good. The art was gorgeous. I loved the characters. The storytelling was great. There are a few funny bits in the science, but hey, it's science fiction, so you know, I wasn't expecting it to be very good scientifically speaking. So, but yeah, it was great. I absolutely adored it. Now, next up on the list, and this is the final one I'll be mentioning, is Bustafellows. Again, some of you have probably heard me talk about this game several times before, but this was released this year and is localized. It's very much an action-packed Hollywood blockbuster type game where, you know, the main character has this ability to go back in time. However, there is like a catch of her only being able to go back a few hours in advance, as well as when she does, she ends up in someone else's body. So these restrictions almost add suspense to the story, because you kind of go, oh, is she gonna be able to save this love interest, you know, because in each route there's a situation, like a problem that occurs that really requires her to kind of go back in time and resolve the situation. And I think it really gave that sort of, oh, is everything gonna be okay? Yeah, it was good. Each of the characters quite distinct. They fit a trope, but also they don't. So that makes it quite fascinating for those who are a little bit bored of your average otome tropes. My favorite character is Helvetica. I just, you know, it's rare for me to feel so, not quite infatuated, but feel so attracted to, or like feel very much of a fan of a character. It doesn't happen very often, because there's, you know, I do end up liking, there's always a favorite for me, but I never get this, oh my god, about a character, and that was Helvetica, because I think he was quite distinct. He had a few things that he was, you know, hiding that I was like, oh yeah, that's you know, that's so sad or sweet or whatever. And he was distinct and interesting and pretty, and just everything I like in a character, really. And he's pink. I mean, I love pink. So, but yeah, although I think this is a good game, and I think people should play it, it was not quite my cup of tea either, because I mean, I personally am not that huge on action movies anyway, so I guess the fact that this wasn't, I wasn't huge on this game kind of is a given. But the reason why I wasn't too sure or too hyped about it and took me a while to complete was because it didn't really have that much romance. So you have side A and side B in each of the routes. Side A is when all the adventure and the story happens, but in this time they kind of get to know each other, and it's only towards the end that they finally get together, you know, and it's in side B that all the romance happens. And side B is relatively short, about an hour to 2 hours maybe to complete. And yeah, I don't know, I think I would have liked more romance given the thing, and there were a few things that was not kind of concluded, or you know, there were things that appeared and you're like, what? But they don't really explain it at the end of the game. So I don't know whether that's because season 2 is coming out in Japan next year and they're going to explain it more in that. I'm really hoping that P-Cube localizes the next one as well, because then all the people in the West who speak English will be able to enjoy anything that was not, you know, concluded very well too. So, you know, I would probably give it maybe like a 3 or 3.5 out of 5. If it were, you know, scored as a visual novel, maybe like an average one, I'd probably say it's more, but this is my personal score. I think other people would probably give it like a 4 out of 5, you know, because there are quite a few fans out there who absolutely adored this game. It tackles a lot of issues, like realistic issues, you know, like sort of, I don't know how to put this, but like political issues. I'm not going to go too much into it, because my channel is not, you know, one of those channels that talks about my political opinions, but it touches upon a lot of these issues. And I think when I held a book club on my Discord, you know, a lot of questions came up that were very controversial, and I was very, you know, amazed that everyone was very civil and said their opinions, but without it turning into a massive fight. So yeah, it was one of those games that touches upon things that often people get touchy about talking about, but that I guess gave it more of a fun experience in playing it, because yeah, it made you think about what justice really means. So those are the games that I completed basically, and I think, or you know, like Jeanne, I have played basically enough, I feel, to talk about it. Now there are a couple of other games that, so after playing Shuuen no Virche, which happened in October, I kind of felt like burnt out again, really, because I binged that game. I was playing like a few hours every single day, and as a result of that, I really felt, you know, kind of like burnt out, as much as I loved that game. Yeah, anyway, so then after that I kind of went through a couple of games. You know, I'd play a route of one and then a route of another, and so I went through several games because I just didn't know what I wanted anymore, but I did want to play otome games to kind of keep up my, you know, I don't know, I like always playing something. So here are the other games that I've played that were a little bit only a couple of routes of. Now one is Otome no Meguri. This is not really well known. It's about a world in which there are onis and humans, and the island's called Kurajima, I think, and there are two gateways to bring those who died, like the souls, into the next world, and the oni protect the humans by fighting off those souls that sort of turned into what they call yoma, which are like monsters, and they're kind of wandering and they couldn't get through the gate to the other world. And the oni are strong enough and have the ability to fight them and defeat them. However, they can't do this without these magatama, they're called. They're sort of like amulets almost. And basically there is a girl in the human side of the island who is able to put powers into these amulets, and without that magical power, the oni are not able to fight off these creatures. So like they need to work together basically. However, obviously oni and humans have never really gotten along. That's just how it is. It's just how it's always known. So it's very much a story between these oni and then the main character who has these powers, and there are 4 endings, and oh, I really like this game actually. I think some people, I don't think it's necessarily the most popular. I have played 2 routes so far. Each route has 4 endings and they're all quite interesting. One is the, well, you know, just happy love ending. One's a tragic love ending. One's the forbidden love ending, and one's the my favorite, the messed up ending. Now you can sort of guess what the forbidden love and the normal love and the, you know, tragic love, these are quite, you know, typical. But oh my god, the messed up ending, I'm just sort of like, this definitely needs a trigger warning. Because it's basically every single character goes into yandere mode, and yandere characters are like my favorite characters because yandere is my absolute favorite trope. And yeah, so this is like a paradise game for me. I think I literally came across it because I googled games with yanderes in them and I think this game is the one that popped up. I think some people aren't too keen on the fact that the route, things always kind of happen very quickly and then summarize briefly as well, because they've come up with 4 endings, but each of them have CGs and are very, I am satisfied with it, so I would give it a relatively good score, at least after I finished all the routes. I'll see, but like the 2 routes I've played so far I have really enjoyed, so yeah, that's a good one. I played 2 out of 6 routes, I think, or was it 5? I can't remember, but so far it's been quite good. Now another, and I have played 1 route of this, is Kimi wa Yukima ni Koi Negau. This is going to be localized, or is planned for localization. They have not released an exact year or date yet, but it has been confirmed. It's about this girl who is able to see people's emotions, because everyone has a string attached around their neck that shows different colors based on their emotions. On top of that, she can also see these black string bits everywhere in places where there are bad emotions, and that can result in these monsters appearing. And yeah, it doesn't help that she can predict that, which causes people to be afraid of her, and she's kind of like treated like the outside of the village. One day she gets recruited to join these guys in the official government, basically. It's set in the Edo period, and she joins these guys to fight off these monsters that appear occasionally in the city of Edo. And it's a very classic Japanese otome feel. The one route I've played was quite enjoyable. Bad ending was very abrupt, so I think it's one of those games where you enjoy the happy end of, and the bad ending is kind of like a side thing that no one really cares about. At least that's how I felt anyway. And the mascot character that appears in it, oh my god, my heart every time she appears. I'm just like, I need to take a screenshot. She's just so cute, and there's just scenes where she jumps into like the hair of the certain ally that attracts animals, and oh, it just gets my heart every single time. I think I've got several screenshots on my Switch that is showing like this little mascot character, you know. Oh, she's so cute. I'm fangirling over the mascot more than anything else. But yeah, incredibly classic otome. Stereotypical things that occur in a reverse harem anime or just any otome game that you expect appears. So if you like cliches, you like that sort of thing, it's great. And I like cliches. I always say cliches are cliches for a reason, so you know, I'm quite happy with it. But I imagine this is not the case for everyone, so I'm sure there are some people who I'm not too fond of it because of the cliches, but I will, once I finish the whole game, I will be making a review on it, because, you know, it is being localized, and I think everyone would be interesting to see what it's all about. Next up is actually an indie game called Virche. It's a Japanese indie game, so available in Japanese, and it's made by just one person, basically, apart from, you know, like the voice acting. So I haven't cried properly from an otome game in like forever. I mean, a whole year maybe. I hadn't by this point. And I was like, oh, otome games don't affect me anymore for some reason, and it's really sad. I played this game. Oh my god, I'm so glad that I was at my grandmother's and it was like 3 a.m. so no one can see me, because, you know, I wasn't crying like this. I wasn't crying like that. I was crying like this. So, honestly, it was so realistically told, the story, and I've basically gotten up to the very end where the main character chooses who she ends up with. And I haven't finished it. And the reason is because no matter who you pick, someone is going to be unhappy. And I just can't get myself to choose. So, you know, I need to finish it soon. I do want to make a review, like a spoiler review once I'm done with it. But, oh, I'm still deciding. Yeah, this is a really fun one. It's a contemporary setting. It's about this woman who works at an office, and the two allies. One is normally I don't like this trope, but it's a high school boy, and they don't do anything, so you know, it's you know, legal. But I hate these forbidden type tropes where they're, you know, too young or too old. I really, isn't too old as in like they're a teacher or something. I really don't like this trope. But with this one, it was so good, and it made me cry like crazy, even though the route isn't even over. And as I said, ugly tears. I'm so glad no one saw me. I was so glad I was on my own, because of how the things that happen. Now the other love interest is actually a female, and she so I guess you could say maybe it's an amare game At least that would be what it was categorized in the West. In Japan, it would be categorized as an otome game, but in the West, there is a category called amare games, which I believe are games where you've got a main character who is any gender and the love interests are any gender as well. So it's a very accepting type of category, and yeah, I guess this would fit into that because the other character is female and she actually breaks up with her long-term boyfriend because she ends up liking the main character so much, and it's painful to read. It really is. So much angst. This game is just angst galore, but so good, honestly. Ugly tears, like I said. Now, next one, because I keep on talking about that, is Chou no Doku Hana no Kusari. Now, this is an R18 game. You can get it on Switch as an R17 game, where I think they basically all the, explicit scenes, instead of them being like naked, maybe they have like clothes on, or their kisses aren't as passionate, or they black out at the moments when they actually do the deed, if you know what I mean. But the R18 version is the one that I played because I wanted to just see what it was all about, in its original state. And let's just say it gets really disturbing at points where I was just sort of like, ooh. And I won't go into too much detail, but some of the endings, if you go to the, more darker endings, some of the endings are so bittersweet. And there is one that I like the bad ending definitely more than the good ending, because it was just so real, and like real in a mature way, like bittersweet. It really hits you, and I love that sort of ending. So, and it's basically about this girl who's from a prestigious family. However, it's in the Meiji period, I believe, when prestigious families, often it's a kind of lower class, working class thing to work, so they look down upon it. But obviously they've only got so much wealth and they're not gaining any more, so they basically have to start selling things off, and they're becoming incredibly poor. So the only thing that's left over is this daughter who, people can marry to gain the prestigious name from. And it's about the main character, who is the daughter of this father, and the poster boy, I guess you could say, is really into her, really wants to marry her because he's new money but wants to gain a good name girl. And but I guess it's an R18 game after all. It gets very dark, and I've played, I think, 2 routes. No, I've played 3 routes, and I've almost finished the 4th one, and then I think there is 1 more, maybe 2 more, and so I haven't finished it, but with time, it's just that the last one I played had a particular scene. It was incredibly disturbing, and normally these things don't affect me, but I don't think it helped that this character was the one that I was looking forward to most, and I really liked him, but he did some horrific things, and I'm still kind of getting over it, to be honest. So once I'm over it, I'll play it again, but we shall see. I do need to complete it because I am curious about what happens. Now, the last one is Niruado Mirari no Tenbin. I think this is one of the most desired for localization games this year. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I don't understand why, because it's not a bad game. It's about this girl who lives in a world, it's based in a Taisho period, where there are these books, and if it's like a written book, sometimes if the person who wrote it has an overwhelming emotion, it makes the book have this like curse almost, where if you read it, it affects you quite badly, and some people have committed suicide or attempted to, or do horrific things, and it's as a result of these books. And she ends up entering this kind of organization because of her powers to be able to see the power emanating from these books without even having to touch them. She joins this organization to help them discover these books and try and sort of take them away from public eye, basically. And it's not bad, don't get me wrong, right? But after playing things like Olympia Soiree and Cupid Parasite, it's not it's not that amazing. So I personally don't think, if you were to choose a game for localization, I don't think Niruadomiran no Tenbin really does the job. I think if you were to pick one, I wouldn't go for that one. I'd go for something else. But it's not bad, you know, it's okay. Like, the story's okay. You know, there is a lot of repetition in terms of the girl just going to check if there are these books and then finds out that they aren't. She comes home feeling a bit, you know, unsatisfied. And then this happens again the next day. And then it happens again the next day with like a few elements of basically, you know, romance of that character and learning about the love interest a bit more. As I said, I've only played 2 routes, so who knows? I might like it more by the end of it. But I'm not gonna lie, so far I'm just finding it like a nice read, you know? I'm not bored, but I wouldn't say it's fantastic. I'd probably give it like maybe a 3 out of 5 or 3.5 out of 5 because, you know, some of the scenes are romantic. But like, I mean, I've heard the fan disc is better, so who knows? But the main game I don't think is as fantastic as it's hyped to be. And some people are probably gonna hate me for saying that, but that's my honest thoughts. But yeah, that concludes my list of games I have played. Now I shall say which ones became my top 3 of 2021. Coming in 3rd place, I don't know, I'm just trying to do drums or something. But coming in 3rd place is Birushana Senki. Now this game is 3rd place because honestly, although there were parts that I was bored of, the bits that I really enjoyed were so good. And as I said, one of the bad endings is now my all-time favorite bad ending. So it won points in that sense. I like the art, I like the characters, I like the fact that I learned bits of history as I went along. I think the main character is very strong, but also has girly moments. It feels very real. And as I said, I lost a lot of sleep playing this game, and it just left a good impression in my mind. And so I'm so glad it's coming for localization. I really enjoyed it. And so it gets 3rd place. Now in 2nd place is... Oh, I wish I could add drum noises, but anyway, it's Jeanne. Jeanne really impressed me. I know I've only played the Roots of 3 love interests, but it's weird because when I bought this, I was thinking, I don't know whether this is going to really be something I'm going to enjoy. That I know there's not going to be much romance. It's going to be a really long process, and I don't know how I'm feeling about it, but I don't regret it. The art is beautiful, and it's funny because the sprites initially I thought were kind of ugly, but like now I've gotten used to it. I don't mind it at all. I think it's quite nice, the art style. The CGs are beautiful. The music is so catchy that I think about 3 months of this year has had Jeanne music stuck in circle in my mind because it's so good, it's so catchy. I have the CD of it because I got the limited edition, and it's overall just a very wholesome game. You get this excitement every time because every 3 months of in-game time they have to produce a production, like a stage play, and of course in each point the main character goes through difficulties of being able to act that role. And yeah, it's just that excitement. You're seeing they're really rooting for this character to be able to achieve, and then of course she achieves brilliant things, and it really gets your emotions heightened up. And I'm not gonna lie, I almost cry in bits, not because of how sad I am or how happy I am, but because of the excitement. It just kind of feels overwhelming. So it's kind of like, you know how in shonen mangas and anime often there's like scenes where, you know, you've got the main character, they're skilling up in a certain thing, whether it be like battle or whether it be sports, and then they, you know, go against an opponent and you're like, oh, go on, you can do it, you can do it. It's kind of almost like that feeling. You're really rooting for her, and yeah, it's just, It's so wholesome. Honestly, I recommend it to anyone who comes to me and asks for, you know, an otome game. Even those who aren't that bothered by games that don't have that much romance, I would recommend it, because normally I feel really sad when there's no romance in a game. Like, the games that I typically say did not suit me are those where there's barely a kiss scene. And this has barely a kiss scene. So far I have not come across a kiss scene, I don't think. So there's very little romance, but it's just, I really enjoyed it. It's left such an impression. So that's the game that came in second place, and yeah, I think I'd give it like a 4 out of 5, and I can see some people giving it like a 5 out of 5, you know, it's just so good. But anyway, lastly, and obviously not least because it's first place, is, and I think everyone knows which I'm gonna go for, is Shuuen no Virche. Now, this game, honestly, is my all-time favorite now. I didn't think any game would beat Cupid Parasite. Okay, I don't know whether it's beat Cupid Parasite because they're two completely different games, but I enjoyed it on the same level. I just, it was so beautiful. Oh my god, so up my street. It's, I know there wasn't that much romance, but the thing is, the bond that the main character and love interest have is almost beyond romance. Like, it's something stronger. Like, they're not only in love, they're like this, they're just, yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but their bond becomes so strong that it's inexplainable. And yeah, no, everything about it was beautiful. Again, the art, the storytelling, you know, the mixture of sci-fi and fantasy, it was so well done. And the final route, all the twists and turns that happened, it was just all, it was brilliant. Now, I think there was a couple of routes that I wasn't like huge on, but I think if it was in another game, I'd be like, you know, praising it type of thing. I think it was only, I only didn't feel too like wow about it because it was in this game where all the other routes were so superb for me. And yeah, I'm gonna stop talking about it now because I'm gonna probably bore you all, but it is definitely my first place game of 2021. And if you are able to play unlocalized games, the Japanese is quite tricky, I would say. It's quite advanced, I think, but if you are, you know, if you have the courage and you're willing to take this challenge on, then I would definitely recommend this game because it was great. I mean, obviously I wouldn't recommend it to those who hate bad endings, since you have to play the bad endings before you can play the good endings, and even the good endings aren't really good, but, well, in some of them. But I just love it so much. But again, this is my personal opinion. Some people out there probably like, I'm not sure about it, so yeah. But anyway, that's the end of this video. So I think I went on quite a long rant. Oh my god, it's been over 40 minutes, I can see because it's on the camera. But my god, this is a long video. But anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. And hopefully I'll see you in another of my videos, and maybe in the next year. Bye!